Fair enough. So, Jim, when I speak to at least the bullish camp, I think the three pillars that kind of emerge in the bullish camp are that, we have strong earnings, we have massive stimulus, and of course the vaccine progress, has probably, and all three proponents are not only still in place, but are getting stronger day by day. However, the risk of one of the three pillars, the risk to the markets is not that one of these three pillars crumble, but instead that yields climb to such an extent that undermines this part of the PE expansion that we have seen in 2020 in markets all over. So as the battle against the pandemic is won and fiscal stimulus numbers surge, yields are bound to rise, and we have been seeing that in pockets in developed markets already taking place. And you've had a very independent view for a long time and been bearish in parts on the US dollar. And would be love to hear your thoughts given this current backdrop. That do you think that the dollar's near-term and longer-term views or the theme is related to how yields play out, or do you see that the dollar is now, given the stimulus, in a structural downtrend because it has massive implications on EMs?
Well, I own a lot of U.S. dollars at the moment, Shiv. The U.S. is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. It's getting worse every day. So you probably should say, well, why do you own U.S. dollars? I own them because, we're going to have more problems, turmoil in the world later this year or next year. During times like that, people always look for a safe haven. They think the U.S. dollar is a safe haven. It's not, but they think it is for historic reasons. So the U.S. dollar will go much higher. It might even turn into a bubble itself. It'll certainly get overpriced, at which point I'll have to sell my U.S. dollars, Shiv, because if it's a bubble, especially, you always have to sell a bubble. But there are many countries and many people now looking for a competitor for the U.S. dollar for both political and economic reasons. People know they have to find something to compete with the U.S. dollar. So I can see that the future, the U.S. dollar is coming to an end. It's been the main currency for, well, not 100 years yet, but for 75 or 80 years yet, which is a long time in the history of currency. So I own it, but I'm assuming the end is coming sometime in the foreseeable.
So I guess that would lead to my next question is that, a lot of people debate whether it's the euro or the Chinese renminbi or the yuan or, which currency currently can actually be the next world reserve currency. Do you have any thoughts there?
Well, I don't see that it can be the euro because there are too many people in Europe who want to get out of the euro. And when things get bad, they'll blame problems on the euro. I would suspect it's the renminbi, the Chinese currency, but Shiv, right now, the renminbi is not even a convertible currency. It's a blocked currency, so it's absurd. By the way, I own some renminbi, but so it's absurd to say that the renminbi can be the world's reserve currency, but China has been opening it up since 2005, too slowly, if you ask me. But if and when the renminbi is completely convertible, it's the only currency I can see on the horizon to compete with the US dollar.
Fair enough. So, Jim, let me just kind of reiterate. I think I heard you a while back, and you had mentioned a comment that, if you were smart in the 19th century, you would make your way to London. If you were smart in the 20th century, you would make your way to New York. And, and rightly said, in the 21st century, you've been a big proponent of Asia and you live in Singapore and you're a big believer of the Asia story. And in that context, I would like to ask you that, how do you view the Indian economy, given the last few years? India has actually gone through a lot of big structural moves. We have had the GST, the RERA, the IBC, a lot of, initiatives that the government has undergone. And how big do you view the Indian opportunity within the context of other Asia markets at the moment?
Well, back to India to start there just quickly. Mr. Modi has not done as many of the things I thought he would do. He has not been a big a reformer in India as I hoped. He certainly changed the tax, the GST, and that was brilliant. And who thought it could ever happen? But he did it. We think he did it. It looks like he did it. So that is great. But I wish I wish all of Asia, but especially India, would open up more, because if you made it an open economy for trading and investing, India would have a much greater future. So that's my main complaint with Mr. Moody. But other Asian economies, certainly China, I've been buying Chinese shares, Japanese shares. I'm optimistic about the future of Korea when the 38th parallel opens up. There's still certainly more opportunities in Asia than there are in the West. And if Mr. Moody or somebody ever opens your markets, oh my, wouldn't India be very exciting?
Absolutely. No, you hit the nail on the head. Jim, one more topic that I want to touch on. The Indian rural economy and the sector has demonstrated very strong resilience in the last couple of months. And agriculture being a backbone for our economy, has a domino effect on the overall well-being of, almost 70% of the population. You have been a big bull on agriculture in the historic past. Would love to hear your current thoughts on the key trends to watch out in this space, and how you're seeing probably some pockets elsewhere in the global markets as well in terms of agriculture. It's been in a downtrend for a while, so please.
Well, Shiv, yes, I'm optimistic about agriculture. It's been terrible for a long time, and now it's getting better. Land prices in the U.S. are going up strongly. India has a long history. At times, you've been one of the world's great agricultural nations. You've got the soil, you've got the weather, you've got the people, you've got the brains. Unfortunately, at the moment, agriculture is so regulated, so controlled, so distorted by the government. The government says they're helping people. Oh my gosh, Shiv, it's very dangerous when the government says they're coming to help you. When the government comes to help you, you should leave home. Go away. You don't want help from the government. But India should be and could be and will be a great agricultural nation again someday, if the government would just get out of the way and leave all those smart farmers to do it. I am optimistic about that in China. The Chinese say in the past 40 years, the people in the city have done well, but the people in the countryside have not done so well. So now Beijing will do anything you want to help you if you're in the countryside, including if you start businesses in the countryside, because they want this countryside to catch up now. I'm optimistic about agriculture, but especially in China, where the government will do everything they can to help you. Russia, Russia too. You read Russian history, it's like reading Indian history. At times, the Russian farmers have been unbelievably successful and rich. Now, I'm more optimistic about Russia than some countries because Mr. Trump put sanctions on Russia. And so Russian farmers every day wake up and say, oh, thank you, Mr. Trump. Thank you, Mr. Trump, because now they're protected. So Russian agriculture is booming again. And they too have soil and weather and people. So especially in places like China and Russia, I'm optimistic about agriculture, but nearly everywhere.
Fair enough. And Jim, last 3-4 months, this whole reflation theme has picked up in the world. And, there has been also an element of supply disruption that happened in 2020. So do you think as the pandemic subsides and the economic activity normalizes, do you feel that the outperformance of metals will continue?
Wait, say it again.
Do you feel the outperformance of metals will continue in commodities?
As I look around the world, Shiv, bonds are in a bubble, so they're very expensive. Many stock markets are becoming very expensive. Property in some cities, as we discussed before, the cheapest asset class I can see worldwide is commodities now. I mean, silver's down 50% from its all-time high. Sugar's down, here's silver, sugar's down 70 or 80% from its all-time high. Most commodities are still very cheap on a historic basis, certainly compared to Apple or compared to government bonds or things like that. So the cheapest asset class I see is commodities, especially agricultural commodities.
Perfect. And, Indians are very enthusiastic about gold. I mean, I know you at the moment you love silver more than gold, but do you think your long-term as bullish as on gold as you have been in the past?
Have a little gold here too, Shiv. Don't worry. I'm not buying either of them at the moment. I'm waiting for the correction. I don't know how long this correction will last, a month, a year. I have no idea. I will buy more of both. I will buy more of silver, as you point out, because it is cheaper right now. It's down 50%. Gold is down 10% or something. So I will buy a lot of silver and gold sometime later, because before this is over, Shiv, gold and silver are going to go much, much higher, because people always, when they lose confidence in governments or money, they always buy gold and silver. I'm an old peasant. Politicians say you don't need gold. The Indian politicians especially say, get rid of the gold. You don't need gold. American politicians, academics. But I'm an old peasant, and us old peasants know when things are bad, we want some gold and silver in the closet. We want some gold and silver under the bed. So I'm an old peasant, and I'm going to buy more in gold and silver no matter what the politicians say. And if India can somehow figure out a way to make people sell their gold and make the temples sell their gold, and it goes down, some of us old peasants are going to buy a lot of it.
Wonderful. Jim, I've been waiting to ask you this question on the new age gold, which the fintech world has started talking about. And, Bitcoin has had a phenomenal kind of rally in 2020. Do you own any Bitcoin is probably the one question. And do you believe in that story, or would you believe in it at some stage is the only question I have on that cryptocurrency.
Well, Shiv, I wish I owned Bitcoin. Of course, it's gone through the roof. A lot of people I know have done very well and are doing very well in Bitcoin. I have never bought any cryptocurrency. I will point out that many cryptocurrencies have already disappeared and gone to zero. Bitcoin was not the only one. There were hundreds of them at one time. Bitcoin has been a great success in the markets anyway. My view is that well, first let me go back. Money is going to be on the computer. It already is on the computer in China. In China, you can't take a taxi with money. You have to have your computer money. You can't buy ice cream with money in China. You have to have it on your computer money. So it's going to be on the computer. It already is in some places. That will happen. But it's going to be government money. If Bitcoin or other cryptos are ever successful as money, governments are going to outlaw it. I mean, governments do not want to lose their monopoly. They never have. They do not want to lose their control. Now, I hate it. I hate the government to have even more control, but unfortunately, they do. The Bitcoin guys say, listen, Jim, we're smarter than the government. And of course they are, Shiv. But the government's got the guns, the government's got the tanks. And if the government makes it illegal, most of us will stop using it. So I can certainly see it. It's a great trading vehicle. It has been anyway. But if it becomes successful as money, governments will step in.
Fair enough. I completely agree on that view as well. So, Jim, I also wanted to ask you, as Korea, India, the retail space has actually been growing tremendously. There's a lot of retail and new people are coming into the Indian markets as well. And I'm sure there are a lot of young people out here listening to your advice today as well. What is the one advice you would like to give on personal finance and investing, given your plethora of experience, something, just the one piece of advice that you would want to disseminate as a guidance?
Yeah, watch ET. What do you mean? One piece of investment advice. Watch ET, read the newspaper. I mean, for goodness sakes. After you watch ET and learn from them, the next part is only invest in what you yourself know a lot about. Everybody watching this knows a lot about something, whether it's fashion or cars or sports. Only invest in what you know. Do not listen to hot tips. Do not listen to me. The last thing you want is some guy you saw on the internet telling you to buy Russian shipping. Well, if you don't know anything about Russian shipping, don't think about buying Russian shipping. But when you stay with what you know, that's how you get rich. Now, Shiv, everybody wants a hot tip. Oh, just one hot tip, just one. Forget it. Hot tips will bankrupt you. Hot tips will ruin you. If you stay with what you know, of course, many times you'll do nothing. But if you wait until you see something that you know a lot about, that's how you become successful. Now, Shiv, nobody wants, that's boring, boring, boring. No, we want a hot tip. We want a hot tip. The way to be successful as an investor is to do nothing until you yourself find something that you know is going to work. You do some research and then you buy. And by the way, if you find one, send me an email too. I'll look it up. I'll do some research myself. But that's how you get rich. Whether you're young, old, no matter who you are, if you want to be successful in the investing world, that's what, don't listen to hot tips, listen to your own knowledge.
So Jim, here's another question for you, on investing. A lot of people ask me this question, like, how do you build conviction on an idea? Once you've done the hard research, you think you have a good viewpoint on it. Do you, in your investing career, what has worked for you? I mean, have you gone full guns blazing once you have conviction, or do you kind of, tip your toe in and see, whether you've got the direction right, or is the momentum behind you? What has worked for you, and what kind of advice was you given on that perspective?
Well, first, Shiv, I know that I'm very bad at market timing. I may be the worst market timer in the world, probably am in the world. So I know I'm not any good at that. I don't try to do short-term trading. Try to find things that I think are right. And then I have learned that I better wait, because my timing is so bad. So I wait for a while. My timing is still bad. Don't think I'm any better at it, but I wait, and then I start buying. And I buy gradually and slowly. I don't pile in all at once, because usually it goes down after I start buying, but then eventually it comes along and I have a lot more. And if it works, it usually gets bigger and bigger. And the way I like to do it, I like to do nothing. Many successful investors do nothing most of the time. They wait until they find something good. And then once they buy it, they just wait for it to develop and grow. And, hopefully, if you get it right, years later, you might sell it. So that's my way. I like to do nothing. I like to do nothing and wait. And then I like to, once I own it, after I've accumulated it for a while, then I like to wait and do nothing. And hopefully it goes up a lot.
Wonderful. In the paucity of time, I wish this was an hour or a 2-hour interview. But, for everyone listening, and I just want to let everyone know, I think Jim is probably the most traveled person who will get onto this forum or ever will be on any forum. And, you hold the Guinness record for covering 116 countries by road. I would love to hear one anecdote, or a memorable incident from, that experience that you can relate to everyone, or anything, anything that came out of from that experience. It's not that usual that we have such plethora of different adventures come on, or at least I speak to people on that regard.
Yeah, I make a lot of, you want to hear about my first wife? What a mistake that was. Huge mistake. Oh my, unbelievable. I make a lot of mistakes in my life. We could have a whole day about mistakes I have made. We'll start with my first wife and they go on and on and on. That was a big one. But I've made many in the market too. And some of them are a market like Bitcoin. I never bought any Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Well, I wish I had.